Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the January 12th Board of Commissioners meeting. And can you rise and please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Elizabeth, can you call the roll, please?
Mayor Harker.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Gillikin.
Here.
Commissioner Spiegler.
Here.
Commissioner Matthews.
Here.
Commissioner Cooper.
Here.
Commissioner LaPiccolo.
Here.
Okay, thank you. If I can go ahead and get a motion, unless there's any additions or changes that need to be made to the agenda, can I get a motion to approve the agenda as presented?
So moved.
We've got a motion on the floor. Matter of fact, let me change that motion because I do need to go ahead and remove an item from the agenda. So under new business, I want to remove item number 3. So there's going to be an amendment to that agenda. I apologize for that. So with that being said, can I get a motion to approve the amended agenda?
So moved.
We've got a motion on the floor. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed have the same right. Thank you very much. Now we're going to move on to the items of consent. We have the meeting minutes from the December 8th meeting. We have a personnel policy amendment, that's for vacation leave and sick leave transfer. We have the FY 2026 budget amendment number 3 for the police bicycle patrol. That's a really exciting thing. We're accepting $18,500 from the Big Rock Foundation grant to establish his bike program. Look forward to hearing more about that. We have the USDA Capital Project Utilities Improvement Budget number 3. This is to appropriate $6.469 million in loan for water, $5 million for grant and sewer for utilities improvement. Then we have a resolution for $14,500,000 for water and sewer system revenue bond anticipation note. And those are the 5 items on the consent agenda. So unless anybody has any questions or want to pull anything off for separate discussions, I just need a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
I make a motion that we approve the items of consent as presented.
Okay, we've got a motion on the floor. Any further comments? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed have the same right. Very good. Now, before we get started, I just want to welcome everyone back, everyone who is in person and those who are online, and all the commissioners that are returning and are newly elected a commissioner. Commissioner Matthews, I want to welcome you all aboard. So as we want to move through this agenda, which is very bulky, very smooth, commissioners, just want to make sure that all your voices is heard. Please let me know if you are interested in making a comment, so the chair will recognize you when you're ready to speak. So this way we don't have a tendency to speak over each other and everything will run real smooth. Thank you. Now we're going to move on to our first presentation. This is the draft FY 2025 audit. We have Ms. Coffey, that's with Martin and Starnes, that's going to be giving us an overview.
Thank you, Mayor Harker.
You're welcome.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Tanya Coffey. I'm an audit partner at Martin Starnes and Associates and the auditor for the town of Beaufort for fiscal year 2025. I'm here tonight to present the results of that audit and also give you some key financial information for the town's operations for that year. We'll start with the audit results. What you have been provided is a draft of the audit. There was a delay in issuing the audit due to federal level guidance on how to audit your major federal program, the USDA loan program. These were delayed. These were already delayed, and then the government shutdown that happened delayed it even further. So we did not receive that guidance until the day before Thanksgiving. The LGC did extend the governmental filing due date to February 12th, acknowledging that the extra work and time that would be required to complete audits across the state due to this delay. And we do still have a few minor things that we're wrapping up on that compliance audit, but we expect to issue the report by the February 12th date. No problem. So we do anticipate issuing an unmodified opinion on those financial statements. And what that means as your auditor is that in our professional opinion, the financial statements in front of you are presented fairly in accordance with accounting principles required for governmental entities. I do want to thank Christy and her staff for their cooperation during the audit. I consider the audit a partnership. We have an agreement. We'll do our part, you do your part. I do want to mention that there was also, in addition to the compliance supplement delay, there was a new accounting standard that was put into place this year that the town had to address, which was the acknowledging a liability for sick leave in the financial statements of the town, which had not been acknowledged before, recorded as a liability. Generally, sick leave expires when a person leaves employment, and therefore no liability had been recorded. But now what the standards say is that on a more likely than not basis, if an employee is going to use that sick time during their employment, that represents a liability to the town. So a lot of historical data analysis to determine what is that more likely than not percentage and estimate an accrual for your financial statements for that. So that was some extra work, but we did get through that as well. On to some key financial information for you. Might be easier for me to see on my slides. Your general fund summary, your revenues were down $504,000 compared to the prior year. That is 3%, not much, but the bulk of that decrease was actually from a one-time $1.5 million sale of property. So that is not a recurring revenue that went down. It actually just went back down to fairly normal. You'll see that the other areas of your revenues actually went up during the year. Your expenses went up $592,000. That's about 4%. Most of that was across public safety, general government, and non-departmental, and I believe that non-departmental amount was due to a contribution for the airport runway. And we'll dig into these a little bit deeper on some of the revenue and expense categories. But first, we'll talk about fund balance, because fund balance is a very important measure of the financial health of the town. It's what the Local Government Commission analyzes very closely and watches to make sure that local governments are healthy. So if you look at your Exhibit C in your financial statements, that's your general fund balance sheet, and you'll see the fund balance is broken down into a bunch of different categories. So you have non-spendable, that's inventories and things like that. Restricted means an outside party has told you how you can spend that, and you can only spend it for that purpose. Committed and assigned are board restrictions, so you've budgeted ways that you want to spend that money, but it's not restricted by an outside party. And then unassigned means it's yet to be allocated or assigned in any way. It's available for whatever the town needs. So just looking at the total fund balance of the general fund, you can see the total fund balance stayed roughly the same. It went down just a little bit. I do find it interesting, however, if you look at 2024, that assigned line, that $1.9 million, that was the amount that you appropriated in your 2025 budget to spend out of your fund balance. And you ended up not having to spend that because you had sufficient revenues and other expenses that were less than budgeted, so that you didn't have to dip into your fund balance reserves. This is just a graphical or graphic representation of that same information. You can see from 23 to 24, you did have a nice bump, and then 24 to 25, just a slight drop down to 11.1 million. And again, that was all total fund balance. Now, another way to look at fund balance is the Local Government Commission statutory calculation of available fund balance, and that is basically your total fund balance less your non-spendable, because you can't spend it, and your stabilization by state statute. And that number is a calculation that the LGC, actually state statutes require, and it's basically your revenue or your receivables for the most part. So if your receivables go up, your stabilization number is going to go up. And that's because the state doesn't want you appropriating money you don't actually have to spend yet. You haven't received it in cash, you can't appropriate it in next year's budget. So this concept of available fund balance is very important to understanding how much you actually have on hand that you can spend in the next fiscal year. And that calculation comes down to $9.7 million at 6/30/2025. And if you compare that to 2024, that was $9.8 million. So it did drop just a little bit, mostly due to that change in that stabilization by state statute number. So another way to look at your available fund balance is as a percentage of your net expenditures, which include your transfers out to other funds. And the LGC looks at this as a percentage. So 71.1% in 2023. In 2024, your available fund balance percentage was 74.1, and then in 25, it is 68%. And what that tells us is that 68% of your expenditures that are expected, you could cover as of 6/30. You have the funds on hand to do that. And another way to look at that, so several years ago, the LGC had a bare minimum requirement of 8%, and that allowed you to cover 1 month. And that is obviously not enough reserves to have. But now they've revised their standards or their recommendations, and a municipality with more than $10 million budgeted in their general fund, which is what peer group that you're in, is 25% is the recommended fund balance available percentage. And to compare that to your peers in that group, they average about 46%. So 68%, you're a little above average. However, you're a coastal town. I think it's appropriate for you to have sufficient reserves. I would definitely not say that your reserves are too high, and they're a little higher than your peer group and sufficiently higher than the LGC recommended minimum, so they're not going to be, questioning that. Any questions about that before I move on?
Any questions from anybody? I think we're good to go.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So back into your revenues and expenses. So your top 3 revenues, you'll see are your ad valorem, your other taxes and licenses, and your permits and fees. Those were pretty consistent in terms of percentages to the prior year, other than that other amount, which we talked about, had that $1.5 million one-time sale in it. So it did skew your percentages just a little bit. Your ad valorem tax last year was 40%. This year it went up to 42%. Your other taxes and licenses was 27%. This year it's up to 30%. Your permits and fees were 11%, stayed the same. And then that other category last year was 22%, and this year is 15%. So we'll talk about those top 3 specifically. Your ad valorem revenues, you can see, did increase just a little bit. Your other taxes and licenses also increased. Your permits and fees also increased. So all of these categories increased, and then that decrease in your other revenues was only due to that one-time revenue. So fairly consistent, some general growth over those categories. Now on the expenditure side, that $14 million of expenditures that we looked at, your top 3 are your public safety at 47%, your general government at 13%, and your public works and utilities at 11%. And if you compare those to the prior year, they are basically the same. So generally, you're spending about the same amount on those categories year to year. To look a little closer at each one, you can see a slight increase in your public safety, your general government, your public works, and then the others stayed about the same. No major changes or major increases there. The increases that you do see are generally like salary and benefits related and capital outlay related. That's all for the general fund. Moving on to the utility fund, your unrestricted net position increased by $335,000 at 7%, and that is a factor of your net position is broken down between your investment and your capital, your unrestricted and your restricted. Your increase in cash flows from operating activities was $595,000 up to close to $5 million, and that is a very important number because that tells you the actual cash flows from your customers coming in and the payments to your vendors and employees going out, and that cash that's left over is what you have available to spend on capital and financing. So your debt service payments, things like that, all have to come out of that cash flows from operations. You'll notice in your net income, like your bottom line number is 6.2 almost million compared to 1.1 last year. However, most of that $6.1 million is due to a capital contribution. That was $4.7 million of that was due to a capital contribution. That's where a developer has developed assets and then handed them over to the town to to maintain. So those assets are now on the town's books. They've increased your assets, but they also increase your revenue because you received the benefit of those assets, although you received no cash. Also, there was $478,000 in transfers from out of your capital reserves into your utility projects, and that was to fund the governmental portion of those projects. The offsetting expenses are capitalized, so they're not in there offsetting those, so they're going to also increase your net income. Now, one thing I don't have on the slide, if you want to just look at the net income on exhibit, I think it's H, the operating income before those is about $1 million. And as I was saying, that's what you have available, that $1 million, to then pay your debt service and things like that. And if you go over to your cash flow statement, you can see your debt service this year, just the principal portion, was $1.1 million. So your income before those capital contributions and transfers was actually less than what you paid out on your principal for your debt service. And what that tells me is that you may need to look into the liquidity and sustainability of the utility fund, given that you've recently taken on a lot more debt. I'm not going to say that you need to raise rates. What I will say is that you need to at least look at it, to have a study done. You can do that internally or have an external rate study done. So one of the key, there's really two key factors that the LGC looks at when they're looking at the health of water departments. They look at your operating cash flows, or operating income, I think is what they call it, but it's adjusted. It's not the number that you see here. It's adjusted to cover your principal payments. And then they look at your quick ratio, which is your liquidity. How much do I have on hand right now that I can use to pay current liabilities? And they want that to be at least 1. You want to at least have cash in the bank right now that you can pay the debt that you owe right now. And as you can see, over the past several years, you've been right in that 4 range, which means you have 4 times more current assets than you do current liabilities. However, as we just discussed, you've taken on a good amount of new debt. That current liability portion right now doesn't include that debt, doesn't include those bond anticipation notes. Those are specifically excluded by the LGC in their calculation. However, when those permanent USDA financing goes into place and you have actual maturities on those, then those will go into your current liabilities. So from a liquidity standpoint, when that new debt hits, it's going to change this number. All right, any questions?
Okay. Does anybody have any questions for Ms. Coffey?
Well,
Commissioner Cooper?
can you explain why you said do a study?
Yes, sir. A rate study where you analyze your forecasted over the next 5 or so years, your forecasted revenues and expenses, and see if your current rate structure will support the cash flows needed over those next 5 years, given certain assumptions, like your updated maturity schedules. And those can be performed internally if you have the expertise, or you can hire a third party to do those studies for you.
Okay.
Okay, we will have to hire an outside source, not you?
No,
Not
we
your
don't
firm?
do those.
You don't do those?
No, there are specialists who specialize in doing those rate studies, though, if you wanted to hire an external firm to do them.
Is this something that you recommend that we do, to do this study?
I do recommend that you do it. Now, whether you have the expertise in-house to do it or whether you need to hire an outside consultant, I don't know, but I do think a rate study needs to be performed, for sure.
I may have missed when you said new debt. Mm-hmm. Which were you referring in terms of new debt?
Well, if we look at your debt in the utility funds, right now you have $15 million of those bond anticipation notes. Those are going to be converted into USDA loans. And then you just recently got another $6 million or so, I don't remember the exact number,
Right.
For the additional work to be done on the water. So that 15 and that 21 million.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Commissioner Gilligan?
Thank you, Tanya. I appreciate your presentation.
You're welcome.
I just wanted to pose to the other commissioners or the town manager. We did talk about the Rural Water Authority conducting a rate study, didn't we? And that's already been launched, so we've got a little bit of a head start on that.
Yes, ma'am, it's in process.
Okay, just wanted the public to hear that we're on it.
Okay,
Thank you so much.
thank you.
You're welcome.
Any further questions for Ms. Coffey? Commissioner Matthews?
Just one. It's the first time I've looked at one of these audit reports, so you probably can explain this pretty easy, but the utility fund net position plus the total fund balance adds up to about just over 46 million, I believe. But there's a bank balance and then the investments. If you add both of those together, you end up with just over 32 million. Can you explain to me the difference between those two numbers?
Absolutely. So your net position and your fund balance are, cash is only one factor that goes into that. So it's all of your assets less all of your liabilities, and the fund balance and the net position is what's left over. They're kind of apples and oranges as far as if you're talking about how much cash does the town have versus what is the net position of the town. Because, for instance, you've got, if you look at Exhibit A, is probably the best place to get a good, big picture perspective of the total town. And you've got total non-current assets of about 65 million. So those are all your capital assets. Those are a factor that go into your net position as well as your long-term debt, and all of those things are factoring into that net position number.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any further questions? Okay. Seeing that there's no action to be taken, we want to thank you, Ms. Coffey, for doing that presentation. And just, once again, just to solidify that we are on target to make the extended date and filing that on February the 12th?
Yes, ma'am,
Being
we
on
are.
time? Okay, that's fantastic. All right, thank you so much.
You're
Appreciate
welcome.
your time.
Thank you.
So now we're going to move on to the 2025 parking season. That's the Pivot program. We have Ms. Tina Reed, Austin Willis, and Jarrett Glass. Fantastic trio of parking.
Good evening. Thank you. Glad to be back.
Okay.
Let me see here.
I'll give Jarrett just a second to,
Thanks.
okay.
Thank you.
Okay, I get to follow the audit. So, we're just going to go over our 2025 season, do a quick parking overview, the parking revenue summary, the transactional total, give a lot of data. When we did this last year, I think we kind of gave a lot of data that was both informative but somewhat confusing because there was just a lot of it. So we've tried to drill it down a little bit more and get some of the key points. Going to go over some of the new features. We always like to show you where your visitors are coming from. It's always a key factor. And then an analysis of permits, citations, and expense, and a little bit of discussion about next year's program. So the parking season for this year began on May the 5th versus 2024 when it began on May the 25th. So we started several weeks earlier for 2025. It is 8 a.m. to 5 p.m., 7 days a week. Kind of going in and out. Oh, we lost signal. There it goes. It's coming back. We did start permit sales a little bit sooner, April 28th. We did update what we call the TES platform payment, the pay by sale payment platform. That was updated at the beginning of July before the July 4th holiday. And that was for two factors, for two reasons. One, apparently there was some sort of security update with T-Mobile users. and T-Mobile users could not process their transaction and make their payment through that platform when we found out at the end of June. And it was also to the point to where the Text to Park platform is an older platform, and that is actually being sunset this March. And the new platform will be implemented throughout the entire company. So we're a little bit ahead of the game, and with this new platform, there's several new features to it. It helped a little bit better where you could scan your license plate with the camera application instead of having to type it in, a couple other things, and there's some other updates that are coming for this next season. And as a result of last year's presentation, we did do the Ambassador Assistance Program, where we had an in-person handheld credit card reader for those people who didn't feel comfortable using a cell phone or had trouble. They could call the office and we would go to them with a handheld credit card reader in order for those folks to be able to make a payment. Golf cart spaces were increased. There's now a total of 16 total golf cart spaces throughout the town. There are 321 total paid parking spaces throughout the area. Handicap signage was installed. It is directly below the signage is where it was installed this season. The town did update some of the striping of the spaces in the area. And then our staffing updates, Austin Willis was promoted. He was an enforcement ambassador last year in 2024. He was promoted to manager for the operation. And then Alicia Hendricks was our district manager. She has accepted a position in our company as a staff accountant. And Jared Glass, some of you may remember Jared from when we first started when we were with another parking company. Jared was the first manager of paid parking for this town. And he is back. He is now our director of operations for the Carolinas. So he will have a very big part in this operation for the 2026 year. Just a quick overview of where the parking areas are. Everything is color-coded. You have your Craven, Queen, East. These are the actual codes that someone types in when you see the BNC 4, those type of things. The 4 means a 4-hour restricted area, and then the main area. Gross revenues, May through November, came in at $356,000 on a budget of $469,000. So we were 24% below budget. The breakout for that was Text to Park was 294, violations were 20,000, permits were 40,000. That equates to each space earning about $1,100 per space for the season, is the value of that. I will say, and we're going to talk a little bit more about potential reasons why there was a little bit of decrease in the revenue. In comparison, we now manage the Atlantic Beach location nearby, and we were also down there in the revenue, and it was pretty much related to weather. So this map we like to show in between the gray areas, the white areas, and weather is where you're looking for. The dark green and the orange indicates rain and thunderstorms that would equate to people decreasing the amount of time that they're here, not going out on the ferry, not going over to the beach, those type of things that would have decreased their time period. The monthly breakdown for this, you'll see that we ramp up in May with $32,000, and then it steadily increases to July with $74,000, and then the decline starts coming down with August and October ending at $26,000. The pay-by-sale text-to-park platform equates to 83% of total parking revenues. This is a comparison of 2024, which came in at $324,000 versus $25,000. May did a little bit better in 25 than 24. That's because we started earlier. And then you see each month after that was a little bit less than each month. And again, equating to, we had a lot of rain, those type of things that would equate to some people just saying it shortened their visits and such. We broke it out into the different regions of parking and what percentage does each region bring in revenue. So as you will see, BNC Main is the primary at 28%. Your 4-hour restricted area comes in at 23%, but it has the most spaces. It has 116 spaces versus the main area that has about 83 spaces. And then you have East and West, which are pretty much similar side by side, and they're both at 25 spaces. And then you have Craven and Queen, which are much less in smaller areas. Then we break it out to by region, number of transactions. There's a lot of information on this page. As you'll see, 25 actually had 723 more transactions than 24. But when we compare that to the data from 2024, the duration in 2024 was a little bit longer than the duration in 25. So we've broken it out by the duration by each of the locations. Again, with Maine having the longest duration at 3 hours and 33 minutes on an average. As compared to that same area in 2024, the average duration was 3 hours and 48 minutes. And there was 13,000 transactions in 24 for the Maine, but there was 15,000 transactions this year. So it's a little bit of a back and forth. Some areas had a little bit less in transactions, some had more. And then here we just again broke it down by location in a bar graph so you can see the steady increase up through July and then again the downcrease. Again, the 4-hour limit had 25,000 transactions with Maine being 15,000 transactions. And then the east and the lot were very similar, 8 and 9, and then your Queen Street was 2,400. Peak time occupancy. When do people start their parking and when is it the peak, at the most peak? Most everyone knows it's about the lunchtime hour, and this shows for sure. It starts really getting heavy about the 10 a.m., and then at 11 and 12 it hits its peak, and then it starts steadily declining. The blue represents sessions starting, the yellow represents sessions ending. The largest column is the yellow, and which is 5 o'clock, which is all sessions end with paid parking ending at 5. The other part of the new test platform this year was the ability for customers to be able to use Apple Pay, Google Pay, and Link Pay. So out of all those transactions, out of 63,000 transactions, 16,000 of them were done with Apple Pay. Google, not so much, and then Link Pay was 8,500. We also have an in-house social media marketing director who kind of helps us with some social media and helping the town when and where needed. So we were able to help a little bit with some social media and plan to continue to do that for 2026. Now, where do your visitors come from? North Carolina being your top with 66% of your visitors coming in from North Carolina, all regions. And then Virginia and Pennsylvania lead out your top 3. The difference between last year and this year, North Carolina last year had 41,638, and this year it had 41,974. So a little bit more North Carolinians came in. And the other difference was that Georgia got into the top 10 this year, whereas last year it was West Virginia. So a little different. And there's an error on the screen. I fixed it in your packets, but the AL is not Alabama. That should be Alaska. You had 16 visitors from Alaska. And then Hawaii had 7, California, and Texas. We can provide everywhere on the map that you see blue as a transaction. We collect zip code data from the credit card that is being used because that is more represented as to where that credit card is based on their home address versus a license plate that can be a rental car, can be someone else's car, that type of information. Top 10 zip codes. Again, leading out was the local area Beaufort, Moorhead, and continuing on. Most everywhere in North Carolina. I think last year we might have had one that snuck in that was out of state, but for the most part, everywhere is local and short-term visitors. Permit sales. This year, we sold a little bit more than we did 2024. 2024 had 294, whereas 2025 had 303. The breakout there is on the screen. Seasonal permits, which are open to anyone, but limited to the 4-hour area. And Queen and Craven, they're allowed to park there all day with the seasonal pass. Your weekly permits are, again, primarily for the fishing tournaments. Monthly permits are entitled for some of the employees and such that may want to buy a monthly pass in some of the businesses. And then the waterfront business district, again, has to have a specific address that is listed within the barriers of that requirement. The next slide is just showing a permit when the permit sells. Again, May being the highest month. in which most of the permits are purchased. We did sell a few in early April. And again, all permits are license plate based, no hang tag, no decal. It is a license plate that when you're purchasing a permit. Written citations. This year, we wrote 677, 86 were appealed, and then 380 have been paid. Citations only represent 6% of your total parking revenues. You'll see the comparison from last year where we wrote 2,000 citations. After last year's presentation, we heard from the board asking that you would like it to be more of an ambassador educational approach where we work with people and making sure they understood how to pay to park, and that we were not just outwriting tickets for people and making sure that they understood. So that reflection is there in those citations, that we wrote a lot less citations, making sure that people understood how to park. If they needed assistance, Austin and his team would go quickly and try to help them, making sure that everyone understood how to park so that there'd be less citations and it wouldn't leave a negative taste. Parking expense summary. Our budget was $245,000. This is through November. We came in under budget at $195,000, making sure that we tried to maintain, if it was a rainy day, that we cut people loose a little earlier and things like that to help conserve some of those expenses. Net operating income to the town had a budget of $223,000. Came in at $160,000. This is not inclusive of any additional expenses that the town would have paid directly that would have not been with what Pivot paid out. And then topics for discussion. We will be back at your workshop session on the 29th that morning. And so to bring in some of the topics that will be coming back to you to have a discussion about will be signage, is how to make the signage a little bit easier, more uniform. There's a lot of information on it. How do we make it better? How do we make it where people understand it better? Sign placement will also be a piece. We feel like that there should be a little bit more in sign placement, more strategic areas so people do understand a little bit better. We'll come back with some sign mock-ups for you two all to review at the workshop. Rates, talking about the uniformity of rates. Does there need to be any adjustment to rates for consideration, that type of thing? Parking program dates. Do we continue as we did in 2025? Should there be any modification to those dates? LPR occupancy and enforcement options. We talked about this last year, that LPR enforcement is a piece where we have cameras that will scan plates, make it a little bit easier to do enforcement. Last year when we came to you, it's a very costly expense. They came in about $50,000, $60,000 for a system like that. Technology has advanced a lot. And so now there are systems that are out there that we have availability that only cost about $25,000. So something for consideration if the town, we just want to make sure that we bring all to you as your parking operator, what is out there for the industry and what is the technology advancements. Consideration of a residential permit program, what does that look like? We manage residential parking programs for many of our locations, and so there is an opportunity for us to come in and explain to you what would that look like, what would it be, and then you can make informed decisions. Parking availability mapping, this is something that is coming. We are working with TesPark, the company who does the pay-by-sale platform, so that it's geared for environments where there's a lot of traffic congestion. This will be a part of the TesPark, but it will be a URL so anyone can do it. You don't have to download an app. You don't have to be on the TesPark system to actually see it. But it's going to be a red light, green light, yellow light environment interactive map so that when someone comes to your area, it'll show you where parking availability will be. If it's red, it's highly congested. If it's green, you got open spaces. So that is something that we're working on, and we hope to have that ready to go by May. And then any other topics that the board or town manager would like for us to bring to the table, and we'll come back. We'll be more than happy to discuss. Any questions?
All right, well, thank you, Ms. Reed, and congratulations, Jared, on your promotion, and welcome back, Austin. So does anybody have any questions for Ms. Reed?
Yes.
Commissioner Cooper.
First of all, thank you on the lower number of citations that was written. That is great, Ambassador. The weather, on the rain, I'm not a weatherman, and I'm trying to remember, but North Carolina was in a drought. So I'm trying to figure where this rain is coming from.
Well, there were definitely periods of where we had rain, because we did the same thing when we had to do our presentation for Atlantic Beach and for some of the other locations, right? So we were down in a lot of areas due to rain periods that would be a little bit longer, crop up thunderstorms. And on the flip side, the high heat and humidity was also a deterrent in some environments where it got so hot and so hot in the afternoons that people just could not tolerate it. So that also deterred people from staying longer in certain areas.
Thank you.
Okay. Any
And
further
again,
questions?
great presentation.
Thank you.
Commissioner Spiegler?
Yes, I was just going to say, also thank you for that note about the citations. I think that's great. Did you also find that people were sort of parking where they should have more because you were educating them? Or did that go hand in hand with the lowered citations? Does that make sense?
Yes. I mean, I think there's still that education piece. That's why when we come back to you about the signage, we would like to actually map out and put placement where we think it would be better to put some signage. Because we do have some areas where you may have 20, 30 spaces and you have one sign in the middle and somebody was like, what, what am I supposed to do? So we need to come with a little bit better idea on how do we really promote and make sure that people understand the rules and regulations.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Commissioner Gilligan?
Thank you. This is a great amount of data, and I really appreciate all of this analysis and the way that you have presented it. Could you clarify for me how people paid? So we had the over 16,000 with Apple Pay, and then Google with the 1039. Link Pay over 8,000. Is Link Pay like just the plain old credit card
Nope,
service?
Link Pay is another payment platform like Google Play and Apple Play. It's another piece of how you can store your credit card in an account, and then that way you're not having to enter your credit card.
Okay, so did those figures include just punching in your credit card number, the old?
Those are
Manually?
the Apple Pay and Google Pay and all of that. You don't punch in your number at all.
Right.
When it gives you the option on the screen, like let me go back real quick. Oops. Right where it says card and then it says Apple Pay.
Yes.
You click Apple Pay, and then it also will let you know if you want to do Link, or if you have whatever account you have it saved into, it'll allow you to use that.
But
So-
I don't use any of those three when I park, so how am I punching my credit card in? Like, where does that get tracked?
The credit card, if you're not using it through Apple Pay, then you have to select card, and then you do enter your card information.
Okay, and where is that coming up on the screen there?
It's not on this screen.
Okay, so
I
that's
mean, you
just
have
not
to
included.
physically click card,
Okay,
and then it
okay.
goes to the next screen where
Okay.
you enter your credit card
Yeah, so
information.
I guess that's what I'm asking is how do those transactions get accounted for? Okay, thank you.
Yeah, so when we pull our reports, it'll actually show us, we do the report, and it'll show us how the payment method was done. And so,
And so does Apple trump everything, even the straight up credit card
No.
transactions? It doesn't? Okay,
No.
they're more credit card.
no, and this was the first, and we only started in July.
Right,
You know,
okay.
so you had 63,000 transactions, only 16,000 of those paid with Apple Pay.
Right, okay. Thanks for helping me understand that.
So we're talking like 40,000 paid regularly with credit cards, is that right? Does that add up?
More than that.
You said there's 60,000 transactions.
63,000, and then if you take the 16 and 8, so yeah, right about 45,000.
So a lot more. But this is creeping up.
It is
Yeah.
creeping up as people become more accustomed to the advantage of Apple Pay and doing that so that you don't have to type in your number. It becomes a little bit easier.
And I had a second question for you, which is about the Ambassador Assistance Program. How much was that used, and can you kind of characterize the situation where it was used? Was it somebody who maybe just had a flip phone, or could you kind of help us understand
Yeah.
when that service was used the most?
Yeah, two ways. If someone called the office and said, I don't know how to pay or what, then Austin and his team would go to them. If they needed assistance, they would take the handheld credit card with her if they needed. It's also an environment to where sometimes the enforcement agents would go out and have that credit card with them, the credit card reader with them, and then so that if someone was having difficulty and they needed assistance, they could use it that way. I will say it was not utilized very much.
Okay.
There was a point, I mean, I did not pull the data as to actually how many transactions, but when Austin told me, he said it was not utilized very much.
Okay, that's good to know. Thank you.
Commissioner Piccolo?
Thank you for the data, I appreciate it. Obviously, it's 2 years, so 2 years of data is a small subset. We'll have to look at this over the years, see how this kind of plays out. But I'm kind of curious because you have many other municipalities that you are involved with.
Yes.
And kind of curious how other things have affected either, I mean, we kept the rates basically the same this year. Just curious how rate changes have affected even other municipalities in the county. If they did go up, did that also affect the parking issues or the amount of time that people spent, the total time that they spent? Or did you not really see much of a difference in some of those communities when you had that as one variable?
Locally here, we do Atlantic Beach, but it was our first year, so I don't have historical to go back to see what their duration was prior to that. Because they did have a rate increase for 2025, so I don't have that ability to compare that. But we do know that we had a decrease in total transactions there from the previous operator. I just don't have that historical as to if the rate affected it more so. But with it being more of a beach community and people going primarily for the beach, the weather played a big part in that. And some of this weather for that environment was Friday, Saturday, Sunday. In those environments, which is the busiest days, which is, I did not put in your presentation, which again is your busiest days. Friday, Saturday, Sunday are your busiest days.
Okay. And would you say there was any, and obviously it was great that we had less problems or infractions that had to be paid. Would you say there was any specific public complaints that were paramount or maybe underlining that the staff saw regarding, this past season? Was there anything in particular that kind of stood out to you that needs to be addressed?
That's a question for you. No, not really? Okay. Yeah, we didn't, because we'd take a lot of phone calls too, so a lot of it is sometimes just not understanding the payment platform. Sometimes the confusion is do I text or do I scan the QR code? The confusion of, is it a either or do I have to do both? So again, I think some of that needs to be more simplicity and how do we make the signs a little bit better to be able to communicate that.
Okay. I appreciate it. Thank you.
All right. Any further questions for Ms. Reed? We will be talking about parking, as you mentioned, at our board retreat, a little bit more in greater detail, and of course, the public is always welcome. Thank you once again. And considering there's no questions, thank you.
All right, thank you.
All right. Now we're going to move on to the public hearing. That is case 25-14. This is a request to rezone 19.67 acres between Highway 101 and Ronnie Road from R8 mobile home to R20 and R8 to a TCA. We have Mr. Kyle Garner who will be presenting on that. So can I get a motion to open the floor for public hearing?
So moved.
Got a motion on the floor. Any questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay. Just to remind the board, we'll be hearing from staff first, asking any questions of the staff, and then I'll open the floor for the public to make their hearing comments. Mr. Garner, take it away.
Thank you, Mayor.
You're
Usually people leave after I'm finished, so this is kind of, that's okay.
They're not taking it personal. They're not taking it personal.
That's okay. So, thank you, Mayor. As the mayor mentioned earlier, this is case number 2514 for a rezoning of property along Highway 101 from R8 mobile home, R20, and R8 to townhome, condominium, and apartment. Some of the information is the property is 19.67 acres. It is owned by the Taft Development Group. The majority of the property right now are 2 single-family residences and undeveloped. Our Camelanges plan has this identified as an employment center or suburban residential. There were 31 adjacent neighbors that we sent notices to, and we only had 1 return. And based on those letters that went out. We had 2 folks stop by our office and at least 2 more call to get additional information. Our newspaper advertisements ran in the Wednesday, December 31st edition, as well as the January 7th edition of the Carteret County News Times. Under our staff comments, on October 27th, of course, the Board of Commissioners approved a sewer allocation reservation and workforce housing agreement of this property, designating 10% of it for multifamily development for workforce housing, and reserved 16,800 gallons of sewer allocation for up to 24 months. This property, most of it was once farmland that was reverted to a natural site. If you go to the Carteret County GIS and go through their aerial photography, you can see where that photographic history will provide that information. Also, a rezoning to TCA would allow for the potential of 236 multifamily units. People wonder how we come up with that amount, and we take the total acreage, which is the 19.67 acres, and we multiply it by 12 units per acre, which is what the ordinance allows in the TCA zoning district. Also, because this property is located within close proximity of Michael J. Smith Airport, a request was made for a military assessment to Marine Corps Air Station Cherry Point to determine if there would be an issue with training operations. And the training that happens is actually through New River, through the V-22 Ospreys. And if you live around here, you hear them quite frequently in the summertime. And in an email dated November 13th, Cherry Point made a determination that this project would not impact training operations. And by the way, this might be something new for folks, but this is actually a statutory requirement that if you have property that's going to be developed near an airport or that has military training, that they need to reach out to the military to see if they have any objections. So our planning board recommendation, at their November 17th, 2025 meeting, the planning board recommended the rezoning, but there were several conditions. Planning board wanted to make sure that the Department of Transportation would review the access from 101. The Department of Transportation is aware of the project and has reached out to our staff, and they will be reviewing the information as part of a transportation impact analysis if the property is rezoned and a site plan is submitted. Item number 2 was the planning board wanted to make sure that a transportation impact analysis specifically studying the area where turn lanes may be required. So that was something else. And again, to our knowledge, the developer has hired a traffic engineer to investigate any of those improvements along Highway 101. Parking concerns, see, that's why I was wondering why they were leaving. I had parking items too. Parking concerns were based on an agreement for allocation. The developer was asked to make sure there was ample parking within the proposed multi-use development. We had some planning board members that were concerned that there was not enough parking. We have heard that from some of the other projects that we've had over the years, such as 1809 Live Oak. And so this planning board member was very consistent with making sure that the developer realized that parking was an issue or could be an issue in the future. And number 4, that adequate input from surrounding neighbors would occur. So after the planning board meeting, the developer owner on December the 8th held a neighborhood meeting with the adjacent area owners to share their proposal and to gain feedback. To my knowledge, this may be only one of a couple of projects where the developer has gone ahead and done that. We have on the screen for you now vicinity maps, which would be to your left is the vicinity showing the property that is unhatched and other adjacent uses such as the bunkhouse, veterinary clinic, and then the airport. And then the other map that we have is our zoning map, identifying that the property right now predominantly is R8 mobile home, as well as R20 with a few small lots along Highway 101 zoned R8. We also have a comparison table identifying what would be required under the TCA zoning, as well as our comprehensive and CAMA land use plan map identifying what the future land uses would be for this area, which is identified as an employment center as well as suburban residential. And it is where the suburban residential comes into play, where it gives examples of typical uses and talking about, if the context is appropriate, house scale, multifamily, residential, patio homes, and so forth. And it says only occasionally, but it is consistent with that suburban residential category. This slide that we have up on the screen is the actual survey of the property that is being requested to be rezoned by the applicant. And we also wanted to incorporate an aerial photo of the property to give folks a bird's eye view of what it currently looks at, as well as what the surrounding uses are around it as well. And with that, Madam Chair, the requested actions this evening is that, of course, the board conduct your public hearing and have discussion on this request. And I'll be glad to entertain questions, ma'am.
Okay, and thank you, Kyle. Does anybody have any questions for Kyle?
I do.
Okay, Commissioner LaPiccolo?
Kyle, I'm not sure if this is something that's possible, but was there any discussion about, because we've had issues with this in town previously, and we've even had Mercerville have buffers put in place for sound. We also have the other property on the corner, 101 and 70, that has issues with sound. Has that been addressed, or has the developer put forth anything to discuss buffering to kind of lessen the impact of Highway 70 on the residents that may be in that location?
Commissioner, good question. There's been limited discussion on buffering. That is something that was not heavily discussed at the planning board meeting, but is certainly very germane to this. We generally see their buffering plans when site plans are submitted, and at this point, the only thing that we have are the rezoning plans and conceptual plans that they've given us. But that is certainly very apropos.
Yeah, just obviously the noise pollution from 70 with the truck traffic and the amount of traffic that will probably only increase over time would really be probably detrimental to the property, I think, if that wasn't addressed. I think it would just be in the best interest to kind of put that forth and see maybe if the developer would be interested in trying to address that.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. Any further questions for Kyle before I open the floor for public comment? Thank you, Kyle.
Thank you, ma'am.
All right, this gives you an opportunity, the public, if anybody wants to make a comment about this case, number 25-14. Please come up. We've got a hand raised. Please come up to the podium, sir. State your name, address, and you have you don't have 3 minutes, but.
Hi, my name is Norman Geltz. I live at 253 Highway 101. I am the owner of the original property, which was owned by George Sr. and Mamie Lawton, who sold the property. And I am a principal owner who will be affected by two sides during the development, both the north and the west side, where they will buttress up. If you could put up my slide, it's the same slide that Kyle had, only I highlighted mine in yellow to demonstrate to you where I live.
Okay.
So if you look to the south of that yellow part, that is where the original Lawton garage was located, which is now the Davis garage, okay? So I appreciate you taking the opportunity to allow us to provide commentary on the request from Taft Development Group to rezone this property. As a principal property owner, I have two main concerns with the development of the property. One is, I believe that the Board of Commissioners is correct in identifying that there is a need for transportation impact analysis, but I challenge the town of Beaufort and the Board of Commissioners by suggesting that this is not the only intersection that needs to be evaluated. When the Department of Transportation provided to us their plans for Highway 70, it took us a lot of time. There was a lot of intrepidation about what was going on relative to the ICW, what was going to happen to the bridge. We had Mr. Tom Steepy working as an excellent liaison between the Department of Transportation in Raleigh and us. And I don't want to sound condescending, but I saw some failures on the part of the town of Beaufort to negotiate consolations that may have made this work better and more in favor to the town. And I see the opportunity for the town to actually set precedents here for what is going to be happening in the future. We have 3 locations to enter the town now. One is 101, which I would argue is inadequately provides access to one emergency equipment that comes in and out of Carteret County in the town of Beaufort. It's the only access. It's the only ingress and egress that they use. They don't go down Business 70. They go out through 101. It's a safety issue. There are no signs, there's no signage for the school. We have 2 schools. We have the middle school and we have the elementary school that reside on 101 and the side road, which has essentially no signage, okay? A lot of emergency vehicles that go up and down, probably 20 or 30 daily. That's 1,500 to 2,000 calls per week. We can get those calls and we can get those logs from the fire department, from the police, and from the EMS. I would challenge the board to see whether or not all of this burden relies on the developer or it resides equally with the town of Beaufort as well as the developer in identifying what kind of traffic analysis assessment needs to be performed, because there are different levels, right? Very simple ones, medium ones, and high-level ones. I would suggest that all 3 intersections need to be evaluated for this traffic to identify what's going on. That particular corner, it's not news to anyone. It's been identified by all the local residents as becoming killer corner, just because of the elevation changes that are going on at that corner, et cetera. I don't want to berate this, but I think we need to challenge ourselves by saying what's going to happen in the future with that corner, because there's a precedent set here, because it's going to be a very major intersection for ingress and egress to the town of Beaufort. Secondly, I would challenge that during this traffic impact assessment, the town of Beaufort evaluate whether or not we want to put in a truck route through Beaufort to help to eliminate some congestion, some traffic, some noise that goes on 70. And I brought this up to previous town managers before with a different board sitting here, and I brought it up with some other individuals, and it really doesn't get very much attention. It kind of depends upon where the town of Beaufort wants to go with this, Everything is in a period of transition, right? We've come from a very, I've been there for 26 years, Sleepy Town, USA, yes, we're doing some good progress. What kind of progress would we want to plan for the future? What's going on? Okay, so traffic impact analysis, I think, is the highlight of what I want to suggest to you. The second item is stormwater drainage. And I want to bring you up stormwater drainage for a specific reason. I've seen 9 or 10 different town managers come and go. It depends upon who the town manager is, and it depends upon who the town engineer is, and what qualifications both have relative to where this stormwater drainage is occurring in the old crop fields, which the Lawtons owned. They rented it to Harry Taylor, their cousin, who Harry allowed his sons to use it, okay? I have the stormwater drainage, the official documentation, and it shows from the apartments there off of West Beaufort Road that water drainage is supposed to go northward up to where the new 70 is and then drain over to Town Creek. But yet, historically, you know, Mr. Day, Charlie Burgess, the town has been called by the Masons down on Mason Lane. We've got water backing up. It backs up in my backyard. The field sits higher than my backyard, okay? And they come and they customarily, by handshake, pull the debris out of Mason Lane. Well, the water's actually supposed to be going that way. It's not supposed to be going that way, okay? So I called, talked to Mark Eakes, talked to town manager, depends on who you talk to. That needs to be addressed. We need to have someone definitively state which way is the water going. And my challenge to the town of Beaufort right now is we need someone with the authority to make comprehensive and definitive and authoritative decisions about what's going on with that property. I don't think we have a civil engineer. I may be incorrect about that, okay? But it would be to our benefit to have a state-certified civil engineer who can make these decisions instead of placing the burden on a developer to say, you know, you go out and shop around for a traffic impact analysis. Who's going to make the decision if it's going to be a lightweight traffic analysis, a medium, or a comprehensive one? I would challenge the town of Beaufort that says we need a comprehensive one to decide what's going on with all three intersections, not just this single intersection here. Between the new roundabout and West Beaufort Road, we have new pavement going in. Okay, we have some new traffic that's going to be happening. Between where the state of North Carolina Department of Transportation ended, okay, just south of the veterinary hospital, and Caraway Street, there's about 400 feet of two-lane highway which has no shoulder to it, no curbing to it. There are no sidewalks there, okay? One of the things that I would like to see happen is that, and historically, I think we failed to talk effectively with the Department of Transportation, is we have the opportunity to make this a good infrastructure of at least 3 lanes or 4 lanes moving into the future. And this would be the opportunity to say to the state, what would it take to bring this up to standards 5 years or 10 years down the road? Because the infrastructure, the underlayment there is probably insufficient. There's a lot of semi-traffic and a lot of heavy equipment traffic that goes up and down 101, not just to mention the emergency traffic that occurs there. So those are my 2 main concerns. I am in favor of the development of this property. I have looked at the Taft Ventures family, their portfolio. I know who the owners are. I know who the developers are. I went to their meeting. I'm in agreement with everything, but I think there are caveats that need to be addressed for public safety and for the exposure of the town that may increase the value as to what this developer is proposing. And I think part of this responsibility lies with the town of Beaufort and not simply with the developer. And I think that we need to make that decision, make an effective decision that helps us out in the future.
Yes, sir.
That's all I have. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Anybody else wish to make a comment? Yes, we've got a hand raised in the 3rd row, it looks like. Once again, state your name and address, please.
My name is William Yale, and I live at 201 Ronnie Road. Yeah, the traffic, I mean, I definitely have to agree with Norm on this. The traffic on 101 is insane, and our little West Beaufort Road's gonna have a roundabout right there. to the right of it pretty soon coming up. That's not gonna give the folks on West Beaufort Road much opportunity to be pulling out on the highway. And it just seems like the little neighborhood is not gonna be able to handle it. And surely I hope they don't plan on using the construction traffic coming in on West Beaufort Road and into Ronnie and coming up into that project. I mean, it's a little neighborhood that, I forget which one it was that talked about the TCA. Did I hear that right? Where they said it was 22 units per acre? Because I thought we were talking about something here about 109 units.
It's 12 per acre.
12 units an acre, right? I thought we were talking about something that was, I don't know. It just seemed like that's an awful high number for that. That's a pretty condensed population in that little bitty area. With a highway right behind them and a little residential neighborhood on the other side of them. I think it's gonna need a lot of study. I mean, is it gonna be where that apartment complex pulls out to 101? Are they gonna have a right turn, a left turn, and an in? Are they gonna try to do the same thing at West Beaufort Road? Because what are they gonna do? Bring 105 units, so they say 220 more cars into the neighborhood? And, 101, like Norm said, that you got the death drop, you got cars flying, and so a lot of those folks are going to choose to come around through our neighborhood. That is like, right now it's zoned 4 units per acre, not 12 units per acre. So those two are definitely, and also then that big holding pond they're talking about. We're going to have this half acre pond in the back that it gets filled up with rain. It rains a lot in Beaufort. Then once this pond gets filled up and then we get a category 4 or 5 hurricane come in too, now what do we got? If we have an Ophelia hanging around here dumping all that rain like you did years and years ago when it didn't move for a week, what's going to happen with all that water? It's going to run over and wash us all right off the hillside. There's a lot of concerns about it that I know a lot of my neighbors all feel the same way. If they kept it zoned to what we are now, it would be like 76 units. Now they're saying 105. Is that right? So they're saying 105. So they're wanting 30 more units than what the neighborhood's already kind of set up for. It just seems like it's going to be a lot, and people aren't paying attention. I mean, I don't know how big that roundabout's going to be. I haven't really seen any drawings about it or anything, and how close it is right there to West Beaufort Road. I mean, I never saw an accident on that corner, 101 and 70 and all that right there in the 20-something years I've lived here. And they put that roundabout in, and we're going to have cars piled up right here to right here where everybody's trying to come in. I guarantee you I'm going to see quite a few accidents.
Okay.
And that's all.
All right, thank you. I saw another hand raised. Yes, sir. Yes, you. And once again, just state your name and address, please.
My name is Ralph Mason, and I live at 209 Ronnie Road. Excuse me. And talked to a lot of the neighbors. Most of them don't want to show up and afraid to get up and speak in front of people. But I don't mind speaking. And I want to thank this gentleman. He came up with a very good point. Number one, noise. Now, coming down 70, right now in that area, I can hear every boom box coming down through there, not counting the tractor and trailers using it. If you all know what a jake brake is, brrr, that's what you hear. And this is every night, not counting the sirens, not counting everything else. Now, my question is there going to be any type of a noise barrier there? I can ride down Interstate 40 and there's no noise barriers, and there's not even a house out there. So, is there going to be? Sir, please address that. Matter of fact, I came in to see you today, and you're so busy. He was. Number two, the traffic problem. How many of y'all are very familiar with that place down there? I see. I mean, really, do you know where we're talking about? Okay, coming out, trying right now to come out of the old West Beaufort Road. Do you all know where I'm talking about?
Yes, sir.
All right, come out about 12 o'clock in the summertime, and you sit there for a half an hour trying to get out now. Anybody lives around here knows it. Well, we need to, are we going to put a traffic light there? Are we going to have some way to handle that traffic? Because if those new units are put in behind us, that traffic will quadruple. That's a guarantee. And I think all of you know it. I love development. I like the idea. Matter of fact, if they'll develop it, it'll probably make my property go up, especially in taxes. So, are we going to set up some type of different type of traffic patterns to go in and out of there with the development? So you're looking at that? I hope so. All right. And my neighbor down there, and he's right about the water runoff. And I've already collected once on my insurance flood, because let me tell you something, folks, that area does flood. And it floods bad. Matter of fact, I believe, was your place underwater here this weekend? Was your place, did you have water standing out in front of your place today? Not today. Well, I did. After the rain. It is, the flood control there is something you're going to have to address. Ain't no question about it. Where's the water going to run to? Well, I know where a lot of it runs right now, right over on my property, right over on it. Number three, next thing I want to ask you, are they going to remove all the trees? Now, those trees in that little area, if you look at it, it's all wooded. What little bit of barrier we have right now to keep the noise down, that's it. If we do get a wall put up there, that'll probably help a lot. And another thing I want to address, and I'm going to agree with this gentleman, that holding pond. Now, water stands right behind my house right now all the time. There's no drainage, nothing. There's an old ditch there that's probably the farmers done it years ago. Mosquitoes after 5 o'clock, set your clock, because you're not going to go out there. And we get this new water standing thing, I think we're going to have a problem with it. And my main concern is the traffic. Now, the area we live, I know it's a trailer park, but you know, in the summertime, those kids up and down the street, guess what they're on? Riding their bicycles, riding their skateboards, living like normal people do. Not jumping out in front of I-40 or jumping up in the middle of 70, which we're going to face, and we're going to face it. Sir, I certainly hope you're keeping this in mind, because I know I'm all for developing. I'm all for it. But let's do it logically. Let's don't put more in there. We don't want to become another New York City. You don't build out. You build up. You start building out. There's nothing left. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you, sir, for mentioning that.
Thank you, sir. Do we have anybody else who wish to make a comment? Yes, sir, you. Thank you. We've seen the pattern, name, and address.
Roy Ronald Barber Jr. 211 Ronnie Road. The concerns are that it seems like every time a developer comes to Beaufort, the people off of West Beaufort Road and Ronnie Road, we're disadvantaged just a little bit. When they developed Town Creek Marina, they cut off our quick access to the boat dock. When they developed the airport, it was proposed to the Board of Commissioners to zone it as existing non-conforming, which would not allow us to do any improvements to our property, change out the mobile homes, these kind of things. The Board of Commissioners, I'm very thankful for that, voted and turned that down. And the reason behind it was that the air traffic and the improvements to the airport put landing routes for the airplanes right across top of our property. So that was the reasoning for it was so dangerous that an airplane was going to fly into our property that that this property was going to be phased out. Now they're proposing, now that we've got high density developers coming in with planning and development services specialists, that now it's okay to put in the same air traffic high density development of 12 units per acre. To me, is it about getting rid of the mobile homes, or is it about developing the property, or about the safety of the airplanes? And I know they mentioned buffers for the Highway 70. Well, when these people come in here, say mobile homes, the big buzzword now is affordable housing. Well, there's no more affordable housing than an existing mobile home park. To other people, mobile homes may be eyesores, but to us, this is our hidden, just a hidden paradise. That's what it is to us. So I'd also like to see buffering between the townhomes, and they're going to build anyway, regardless of the air traffic and all this kind of stuff. They ain't sunk $2 million into it to not build this thing. But what our request is that our property rights as mobile homeowners are not setbacks, these kind of things, zoning rules are not changed, so we can't have our property rights as well. So, and I hope that they have buffers between the mobile homes and the townhouses, because they're going to move this northern money in here. And they're going to start complaining about how our stuff is dragging their property values down. I've seen it happen in mobile home parks before. And I just appreciate your consideration. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else who wishes to make a comment? Yes, sir. Oh.
Good evening. For the benefit of Commissioner Matthews, I know he's new to the board here, just kind of go down who we are. My name is Kevin Johnston. I'm Chief Operating Officer for Taft Family Ventures. We're based in Greenville, North Carolina. We build extensively in the area. We've built in Newport. Compass Landing is a project of ours that's directly on Highway 70. That was a huge success. We're an 80-plus year-old real estate company focused primarily on market rate and affordable multi-housing communities in North Carolina, South Carolina, Virginia, and Maryland. Over the years, we've developed and managed nearly 5,300 affordable and market rate multifamily units. We also have experience in commercial, office, retail, warehouses, and student housing. Our team specializes in taking raw land as we see it now through the entitlement process, developing it, constructing it, and managing it. It's like the project that we're talking about tonight. We appreciate the opportunity to be in front of the town commissioners again to present the site for rezoning for suburban residential to townhouse condominiums and apartments. which supports the town's transitional zoning districts designed to shape housing types and densities appropriately. We also appreciate the opportunity and guidance we have received from the planning staff and also the fire department, police department, and water and sewer departments as we've worked through the planning process. We've met with the planning board. As mentioned earlier, we've met with adjacent neighbors to outline our plans at this very early stage of the development. Common concerns, you've heard about those: increased traffic with the impact to the school, access to NC 101, fire rescue responses on Highway 101, as well as stormwater management, setbacks, and parking concerns for the proposed developments. Should the commissioners approve our rezoning request tonight, we plan to address each of these items as our civil engineering and architectural designs develop through the coming months. We'll be working with the town staff, North Carolina DOT, North Carolina Department of Environmental Quality, U.S. Housing and Urban Development on our site plan and building designs through the technical review committee process. This process will coordinate the development plans for compliance with the town's land use regulations, standards, and technical requirements leading to permitting the project, if approved, through the town and through the state for construction. If the commissioners support our rezoning request tonight, our goal will be to create a rental townhome community which will add to the housing choices and diversity of housing in Beaufort. As mentioned, we have already committed to an affordable component by setting aside 10% of the units for workforce housing to support 80% of area median income rents for medical, fire rescue, service, industry, teachers, local government, and also for military personnel. The development will offer 2 access points into NC 101, alleviating some of the traffic concerns, and will also provide for adequate sidewalks on each side of the streets, which will comply with ADA disability standards. Since we plan to build less than the rezoning request, and it is up to 105 units, the rezoning request will leave us with plenty of room to comply with setback requirements, provide adequate buffers, and to provide for more than adequate parking beyond the town's parking requirements as stated in the UDO. Our goal will be to create a rental community that will be in keeping with Beaufort's coastal design themes and create a neighborhood connecting people with shared community amenities. We desire to attract and retain full-time, year-round residents to the town of Beaufort. We feel our request is consistent with the town of Beaufort's comprehensive and CAMA land use plan and supports the town vision for a balance of residential choices to complement existing individually loaned residential housing in the Beaufort area. The site is located at a gateway for the town and positions the project as a logistical transition between lower density suburban areas and higher density neighborhoods. I appreciate your consideration for our rezoning request to TCA, and will conclude that on that note, and subject to any questions you may have. I would like to address a couple things that I've heard. First, on the noise item in buffer areas. We will end up doing a tree survey of all the trees that are on the site. The UDO, what I understand from civil engineer, we get a lot of credit for existing trees that are around the perimeter of the site. Our goal would be to maintain those and not plant new, to leave the buffer around the site. That will help with noise, obviously, but also maintain the natural setting of what that site is today. The UDO requirements have setback requirements and buffer requirements in them that we will comply with as we go through the process. U.S. Housing and Urban Development is involved with our design review for our units. So to answer your question, sir, related to noise, we have to maintain a 45 STC rating, sound transmission coefficient, inside the units. That's a calculation that is done based on exterior walls, insulation, window types, et cetera. That's done by a professional, independent outside of us. So you know, 45 STCs like your hair dryer going off in the morning, the level that you have to maintain. So we will be going through that process as part of this TRC process as we further design the project. The storm, it's not a holding pond, it's a stormwater management pond that's being created. That's required by North Carolina Department of Environmental Quality. Our professional engineer, PE, will be designing the project to those standards. That will be submitted to the town to review. We will also be required to permit that through NCDEQ. So DEQ will be reviewing that stormwater management plan. My experience, sometimes lived in Florida many years. I live in Carteret County now, actually. Is that stormwater management actually helps flood events because there's size for a storm to occur, sized appropriately so they maintain some of the water so the water doesn't flood out. It's a requirement everywhere we go. Beaufort is nothing unique that we have to do besides comply with the requirements. We also think it'll create a nice buffer and also add to the amenities of the area that could be enjoyed, by the neighbors with the pond. So that's all I have. I think I'm trying to address some of the questions, concerns that I heard, unless anybody else has any other questions from the commissioners.
Well, Mr. Johnson, we're still going through the public hearing process. If you would have a seat in that front row right there, so that as the commissioners begin to deliberate, you'll have a short walk back to the podium. All right, is there anybody else from the public who wishes to make a comment about this particular case, 25-14? Okay, seeing that there is none, can I get a motion to close the floor for public hearing?
So moved.
Got a motion on the floor. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, thank you very much. Now it's the time for the board to deliberate, ask questions of staff. We've got Mr. Johnson here with TAF, who's able to answer any questions. We are looking to either approve this request, deny it, or recommend any additional restrictions to this particular.
Mayor, may I address that?
Yes, please.
This is a rezoning from what I would call a traditional zoning district.
Okay.
A set of districts to a new traditional zoning district. It's a straight up yes or no question. The board does not have the authority at this point to impose conditions generally or to address the issues that have come up tonight. The board may have that authority when we get to the site approval process, when we get into the nuts and bolts of how the project will look and how it'll be built and laid out and things like that. So again, tonight, should the board take action, it's just a straight up yes or no vote on whether to rezone the property or not, without the authority to implement or attach any conditions at this point.
But if they do address this as a yes or no, these conditions that we've heard, we can address those at a later date.
At the site plan
At the site
process,
plan?
yes, ma'am.
Okay. All right. Time for the board to deliberate and ask any questions they may have.
I do have a question, taking into account what our attorney said, that this can't be addressed tonight, I don't think, in this vote, but in thinking about the traffic impact analysis study, what level of study would be done? We've heard, there are different levels of study for that, and I think all of us up here know that intersection, there's a lot of traffic already. We know the public, and myself, I drive there pretty frequently. We do know it's called Kill Hill, 101 and 70. And to me, that seems like a very dangerous intersection. And we know more traffic is going to make it more dangerous, I would think. So I do think it is really, really important as we're moving forward that traffic is only going to increase. What kind of study are we going to have done? Knowing that I don't think we can put that condition on tonight, but is it going to be a higher level of study that looks holistically at that traffic in that area and what can be done? And I don't know who would answer that question. Okay.
All right. Yes, yes, sir.
I'm going to try my best on this. That is actually would be a combination of our staff, the Department of Transportation, and the developer owner. With us, because the majority of the traffic pattern there is on a state highway, we would definitely want the state's input as to the level and so forth. For us, we definitely want to not only focus on 101, but also the folks on West Beaufort Road, Ronnie Road. I mean, that would be an impact as well. So there may actually be some others, but I would also want to confer with some of my other technical review committee members here on that level. I think the applicant developer here hearing that this evening, I think they have an idea of that may be expanded, and if it's not acceptable, then I think we know what the outcome to that could be. So, yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you, Kyle.
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner LaPiccolo?
Yeah, I have a few things that I'd like to discuss or address. One, I guess, was speaking to one of the comments that was made regarding mobile homes. From what I understand with this property was made available for development because of the restrictions from the airport were lifted to allow for the property to kind of move towards more development because of the retirement of a specific runway. Is that correct, Kyle?
Commissioner, I can't say that it was specifically for this one project.
Correct, I understand.
But yes, that runway is being decommissioned.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
In regards to mobile homes, maybe Ari can weigh on this. The state does have statutes that protects mobile homes in our state. Is that correct?
Correct. The gist under 160D is a local government jurisdiction cannot have its zoning and land use laws so as to make mobile homes impossible throughout the entire jurisdiction. So we have to have at least some areas that are available for development as mobile home parks or individual mobile home sites.
And the emphasis, I believe, it was that they are important for a community, that mobile homes are important and that they should be preserved and not be done away with.
Absolutely, and unfortunately, there's a track record around the state of some jurisdictions trying to, I'll use the word outlaw, but make mobile homes, new mobile homes, impossible in the particular jurisdiction.
Okay, I just wanted to clarify that. And then regarding the transportation impact analysis, a couple things. I guess looking at this development, it does have a lot of good things, I think, going for it regarding the fact that, with the density, it could have been over 200 units, and the developer's looking to put in about 100, 110 units, 105. So that amount, with being a decreased amount of density is very, I think, helpful for the community. The other part that's going to be helpful, I believe, is the roundabout at 101 and 70. As coming out, you'd be able to make a right-hand turn, enter the roundabout, and then go back up around onto 101. So I think traffic pattern will probably increase for those who are coming out on West Beaufort. The other pattern that I think will probably improve over time that I've been able to see and been privy to some information is we all know that the airport will be moving their runway or extending their runway, and with that, 101 will need to be diverted. So with that, there may be, and there probably will be, an improvement at 101 and 70 with Kale Hill, as it's called. So I believe that there's going to be beneficial, a lot of benefit to the community in the future at that intersection. So I think looking out for that in the future, obviously it's going to be down the road, but I think that's going to be really helpful at that location. So we have a lot of good things here. One of the things that does concern me about the property, and we see this, and this has been a deficiency of the UDO in our community, is that development usually does do that. They usually come in, they will go ahead and put infrastructure in and so forth, and raise property and create their own ponds and have their stormwater permits put in, and that's great, and that's important to prevent flooding and so forth. But the impacts on the surrounding communities are often not heard or not felt until that development is put in place. And we have very little power on our board, and that, like I said, that's been a deficiency of the UDO, to be able to address that type of impact. And if there was a way that the developer could kind of incorporate or look at that to understand if there's particular, dedicated stormwater runoff that is coming from the properties that are currently in place, to allow that diversion to maybe head to ditches on 70 and so forth, I think that would be helpful for the community. You have a good beneficial, a symbiotic relationship, and I think it would have less impact on these original property owners. So that, along with sound, and I do understand sound, interior sound is one thing, but living in a community with sound or exterior sound, maybe that would be something that the town and DOT can address in the future, because that definitely affects quality of life for the residents in that community. Thank you.
Okay. Any further comments? Commissioner Gilligan?
So I'm going to be in favor of annexation, but I'm really hearing the people who have concerns about stormwater and noise and traffic. And like some other commissioners have stated tonight, that time's going to be the site plan when we can really have an impact. I have a lot of confidence in our planning board, just looking at the conditions that were presented earlier and the conditions that they listed, and also the developer being responsive has been encouraging to me. So I have a lot of confidence that we're going in the right direction with this. We have plenty of opportunities to address these things, and I agree with John, it's really important that we not forget about water control, because we do have a limited ability to control the water that's coming off of a developed property and how it impacts the adjacent property. So really, I think we have to rely on the developer a lot for that. And I think their responsiveness so far has indicated that they might be willing to work with us on that, and that makes me really happy. I also think just getting into a workforce housing agreement, one of the first in the town of Beaufort, is pretty special. And that was at the request of the town, and the developer obliged. So I really hope we continue down that road where we bring up concerns and the developer is responsive to those concerns and is responsive to the concerns of the community. So I'm hearing you, and we'll be paying very close attention when the technical review committee will, to their comments and to the planning board comments and recommendations, and and to our approval and review of the site plan. But I think I'm going to be voting for the annexation tonight.
The rezoning?
Excuse me, sorry, not annexation.
Okay,
rezoning to TCA, sorry.
Okay.
I have one more comment, but Commissioner Cooper, did you want to go next?
Yeah, I just wanted to comment that all of the comments that was made by those during the comment period will be relayed to the planning board so that they can review and come up with their assessment on things. Okay. That's all I want to make sure, because I know it's going to come back to us, but I want to see what the planning board may have to say so as well.
Okay.
I have one more comment and question.
Well, I think Commissioner Spiegler is
sorry,
next.
Sorry, yeah, this is just a quick comment. I just wanted to say I agree with Commissioner LaPiccolo and Commissioner Gilligan, much of what they said. And I think this is a great development for our community for all the reasons Commissioner Gilligan said. I do want to make sure that we are being good neighbors to the community and the neighborhood that is already there. And I want to make sure that, they are working to put in this great new development, but also taking the concerns of the neighbors into account. I think that would set a really good precedent as well for our town, that we can continue to develop in the right way, but recognize the neighborhoods and the communities that are already existing there.
Thank you. Commissioner LaPiccolo.
I was going to ask our town manager, obviously we have the Trestle Walk project coming in, and accessibility on West Beaufort Road is really important, and the connectivity is really important. There are plans also, I guess I'm not as familiar with the entire set of plans with Trestle Walk, but are there plans in place for sidewalks on West Beaufort when Trestle Walk is completed, or as far as the master plan is completed?
So we, in fact, had a meeting earlier today. There's an executive group, a subset of the Parks Recreation Advisory Board that's actively placed that in as one of the 12 to 13 initiatives for the Parks and Recreation team. And this board will receive an update from their chairperson on the 29th and 30th at our retreat. So the specifics to where those connectivity points are all in the master plan, and would want to remind this board that one of the requests you may see is there is an update needed for our 10-year master plan out of the parks, which would result from that 2015 to 2025 period, which is now ready for renewal. So if greenways continue to be a majority influence, which I believe we would all agree that it is, our activity would stay very focused on that. The one piece that I'll share with you anecdotally is I've heard clearly from this board that when our team is meeting with any developer, that the importance of sidewalks are not just on a single side, but on both sides of the highway or roadway if there's a development. And we're germanely connecting that with all of our developers when they come in. So the importance of connectivity and the walkability, the cycling and multimodal in Beaufort remains a very top priority.
Yeah, I think that's going to be so much more important as time goes on West Beaufort Road. Right now, it's definitely a little quieter, a little sleepier, but this definitely will increase the traffic on that road. It would be really important. Okay. Thank you.
Any further questions? Before I call for a vote, I just want to thank each and everyone who had stood up, and I know it's difficult to speak in public at times, but it was very important for each and everyone who did come out to speak and to share your concerns, because without hearing from you, we would not know this information. And then it gives this board an opportunity to work in the best interest of preserving your neighborhood and your quality of life. And I want to thank each and every one of you for coming out. Now, we do have a task in front of us. There needs to be a vote taken on case number 25-14, and what is the pleasure of the board?
I move that case 25-15, request to rezone to TCA be approved at this time.
Okay, 25-14. Okay, all right, so we've got a motion on the floor. Any further questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed have the same right. Okay, thank you very much. Now we're going to move on to public comment. Have we had anyone signed up for public comment?
Yes, ma'am. I have two individuals signed up for public comment. The first is George Aswad.
Okay. Unlike the public hearing, there is a time limit on public comment of 3 minutes. They're not running from you, George.
Okay. All right, thank you very much. Good evening, Mayor, Town Manager, and the Commissioners. I'm sorry for my voice. I'm just getting over a little sickness. I'll make this real quick. I just wanted to put it on record that myself and most of the commercial operators are a little upset, well, not so much upset, but nervous with some of the phrases in the new lease that we received. The one main one being that we can be evicted within 60 days without any reason or cause. Now, this is very hard for us to operate. Could happen, and one of the commercial operators were told, don't worry, but as I have found out in the recent, unless it's in writing, you never know what's going to happen. So it could happen. We book weddings on the Crystal Coast Lady. We have people plan their lives around it. So for us to have a wedding canceled because of some crazy reason that we're not there, well, that's no good either. So it's very hard to operate a business with a short eviction time frame. Now, don't get me wrong, it is fine if we have a reason. 60 days is fine if we have some kind of infraction against the managing company. However, for no reason or cause, that's really hard to deal with. And that's about it. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you so much.
Shannon Diller.
Okay.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Shannon Diller, and I own Windtide, a local business here in downtown Beaufort. I appreciate the opportunity to speak with you about the current paid parking schedule and how it impacts local businesses. As a business owner, I have seen firsthand the impact of paid parking in the shoulder season. The paid parking was pushed back. Apparently, it was supposed to start the end of March, early April this year, and it fortunately was pushed back to early May. but the paid parking was extended or kept through October 31st. Many local customers have shared that while they still visit downtown, they often wait until after 5 o'clock when paid parking enforcement ends, or delay their shopping trips until the off-season when paid parking or when parking is free. This results in a loss of valuable foot traffic during the shoulder seasons, times when we are not in peak tourist season but continue to rely heavily on local support. Reduced foot traffic also affects local sales and use tax collections, as fewer visitors often translate directly into fewer purchases. Strong sales and use tax revenue benefits the town as well as the individual businesses. It supports overall town revenue, helps stabilize annual budgeting, and can reduce pressure on other funding sources. I do understand that this tax revenue represents a very small slice of the pie used for the town's annual budgeting, and that our bargaining power may be minimal in your eyes. However, I have been a business and property owner for 20 years here in Beaufort and have experienced the highs and lows of many economic cycles, along with the periods of the town's own growth and maintenance. As a small business owner, I want to stress that even the smallest adjustments on your part can affect us on a large scale. With all the major current projects underway in town right now, I feel that any relief would benefit every business owner and operator greatly. By focusing the paid parking schedule on the period continuing early May, but perhaps through mid-September rather than October 31st, I believe would create a more welcoming environment for local residents and off-peak visitors, while still capturing the parking revenue and space turnover rate during peak season that you as commissioners are seeking. I believe this balanced approach supports our local small businesses, residents, and even the town itself. Thank you for considering this suggestion. I believe that this modest adjustment to the parking timeline could make a meaningful difference for our local businesses, communities, and the residents who support us and the town.
Thank you, Ms. Dillard. That's it? Okay. All right, so that's the end of public comment. We're going to move on to old business, which is the Cadet Hotel, 400 Pollock Street. And we have Mr. Grady to provide an update.
Yes, ma'am, Mayor and Commissioners, good evening. I will refer to an email update that was sent on Friday, January the 9th. I'll give the board a little bit of history and context and then set forth the options as I see it for dealing with the current situation over at the Cadet Hotel. As the board may recall, the prior board in August of last year approved an encroachment agreement for the porch overhang with the Cadet Hotel. The execution and delivery of the agreement by the town was conditioned upon receipt of an acceptable rehabilitation timeline from the building owner, and we set a deadline of 9/15 for that. The thought behind the rehab schedule is it would allow the town to see at what point in the rehabilitation process would be appropriate to actually record the encroachment agreement. That was based in large part on the lack of activity or no activity at the building since 2021, and the town wanting to see some performance before we allowed one of the few pieces of leverage that we have to be turned over, if you will. In early September, the property owner's attorney basically said that a rehabilitation timeline or schedule would not be supplied. Rather, the owner indicated that she wanted the encroachment agreement to be recorded immediately, so she, open quote, could begin her process of determining what her renovation timelines will look like, close quote. So as of early September, there was no rehabilitation timeline to share, no plan, no concept, no process for moving the property forward. In turn, at the end of September, at the direction of the town, I transmitted a letter to the property owner's lawyer, which basically set forth the history and condition of the property and really demanded and required some action on on the part of the property owner. We received no response to that letter from the property owner or the property owner's attorney. Then in early November of 2025, we were informed that the property owner was partnering with several local individuals to bring the rehabilitation project forward. On 11/10, the property owner indicated that the new partnership would not move forward. There was a very short period in which that prospect was put on the table, and then it fell apart pretty quickly. Also, just prior to that time, on October 24th, the property owner did transmit a letter that set forth a proposed rehabilitation schedule. So we did have some progress at that point on what a rehabilitation schedule might look like. And finally, in December of last year, we received several emails from the property owner requesting, if not demanding, that the encroachment agreement be signed and delivered by the town, since a rehabilitation schedule had been forwarded. So I'll stop there and ask if any of the board has any questions on the blow-by-blow, the history, or the context that I might be able to answer.
Anybody have any questions? I've got a slew. Commissioner Cooper?
So, yeah, I mean, we gone through, and you went through the timeline, and yes, but at this point here, and she had an offer, why are we not able to get the Preservation of North Carolina involved?
Well, we've attempted to get them involved. They were facilitating the investment arrangement that was on the table last November. You probably saw the email follow-up from PNC earlier today that they were aware of several interested parties in purchasing the property, but other than that, I don't know that PNC has taken any additional steps other than trying to facilitate the investment and to encourage that the property owner sell the property. All we can do is ask.
Well, you know, we've pretty much been dealing with her and whomever her partners, if you have any, or just her herself, for at least a good solid 3 years.
Since 2021, yes, sir.
And we're no further than where we were to this date.
No, sir.
And I'd like for us to be able to go a step further and well, I don't know what action that is possible for us to take with her. I mean, we've done all we allowed her a sufficient amount of time to have that place completed by now. And at one point, she, as the word everybody says, she ghosted us.
Yes, sir.
And now she's almost demanding that we sign the encroachment thing before she would even move on to anything else.
Yes, sir.
That's wrong.
Yes, sir. Your options, as I see them, we've got 3. One is to do nothing. Obviously, we can maintain the status quo and let the building sit there. The second option is to continue to try to negotiate some, work that would show meaningful progress before we execute and deliver the encroachment agreement. I personally am skeptical about that process because we've been chasing that for many, many months now, but it is an option, so I lay it out as such. And the third and final option, as I see it, is to pursue the demolition of the building as a public nuisance. I know I've mentioned that to the board on several occasions over the years. That is the town's ultimate remedy and the ultimate leverage, is to go back to where we were in 2020 or 2021. Members of the board may recall at that point we had a demolition ordinance in place, and the property was scheduled to be demolished, and we revoked that essentially because PNC had structured / facilitated this sale to the current owner to rehabilitate the property. So we've been on the cusp before, and it's my opinion that is frankly the only real option that the town has at this point. We can keep talking and negotiating, but the board can see where that's gotten us, which is not very far. And so
That's an understatement. We haven't gotten far at all with her. So at this point here, I mean, and I have gone out and spoken with the community over several months, and especially 2025, held a lot of conversation with the community. 2024, the community was like, no, don't touch it. 2025, they're seeing this deterioration of this building. And, I mean, they love Beaufort, and that's just, to them, it's becoming an eyesore. I would hate to see that building torn down, but if we had to tear it down, then we have to tear it down. Because she's not moving on anything, I mean, since 2021, and we've given her all the time in the world, but she seemed to want to be trying to play us in terms of telling us what we have to do before she's going to do anything. No, not unacceptable. So if we need to tear it down, God forbid, I don't like that thought of having to do that. But something needs to be done.
understood, and that's an option that the town can pursue. Should the board vote to that effect?
I have a follow-up question. I think I saw something in the communication with Preservation North Carolina that they would work towards helping her advertise to sell the property.
Yes, ma'am.
How likely is that going to, I mean, I know you probably can't answer that, but is that something that Preservation North Carolina normally does with, you know, in circumstances such as this, and could that help, you know, actually push through the sale of this property in a timely manner, or is it still the same game we're playing right now?
I'm not familiar with how PNC actually handles the nuts and bolts of their agreements and their restrictions on the property and what they may do to facilitate the resale of it. I'm sure Ms. Gregg from PNC could share that with us or share it perhaps at a board meeting, but I'm just not familiar with that.
Well, share with with Commissioner Spiegler. She has several offers concerning that property, but apparently she's wanting more than what some think that property is valued at. So I mean, and she's had quite a few offers, some local and some out of the town, but she have had offers, and I don't know why she's not willing to sell other than offering, you know, like I said, asking more than what the property pretty much tax value.
I have to say, I mean, the concern with Miss Sandy Smith is I don't think we really know what a win is for this developer. I mean, this is a woman who's not a resident. She was selected to try to develop this property. She doesn't have ties to the community. She doesn't live in the community. And we're really not sure what it's going to take for her to move forward and develop this property and rehabilitate this property. And we've given her multiple chances and multiple opportunities for this. Ari, since the last meeting that we had, or I guess there's been a subdivision or sale of the property also, a portion of the property to another unit, if you could speak to that?
Yes, sir, correct. If you are standing in the street looking north at the property, you've got the building that is the Cadet Hotel itself, and to the east or to the right, as I'm standing in the street looking at the property, there's a little vacant patch, if you will. In November, that vacant patch was transferred from Ms. Smith's LLC to a different LLC. The deed did not reflect any revenue stamps, which to me says money did not change hands, because if it did, you'd be able to calculate from the revenue stamps how much. But we have no information on that transfer other than the fact that it took place based upon the deed that was recorded in the Register of Deeds, and also based upon the survey that was recorded.
Okay. And we've invited her multiple times to come to the board and speak in front of the board to kind of explain where she's at and her intentions and so forth, and she's declined. So we really don't know where she's at in regarding to what she was even planning to do with this. And Kyle, just curious, with subdividing or splitting that property, would that substantially change what's allowed to be done? I know in the past there had been talk about possibly downstairs business and upstairs, creating mixed use and so forth with residential upstairs. I would imagine that would cut into parking or cut into the ability to develop the property and further, and may affect that as well.
It could, sir, depending on what type of redevelopment she wanted there, which we still don't have a picture of.
So just complicating things even further. So it's really kind of really unsure what's going on here, what the developer is really looking to do. And also, the other thing that is kind of concerning to me is when she did submit a timeline, the timeline was really just in an email of just three or four lines, maybe 2 or 3 sentences of just what may need to be done. And being familiar with timelines and schedules like we've had for the hotel that was built in town, the Margaritaville Hotel, we're looking at Hudson Brothers basically giving us a really extensive timeline and goals and specifics about benchmarks that need to be reached. And so I was concerned that there hasn't been a contractor that's been brought into play here, that this is just just not a very cohesive movement here for the developer that's trying to do this property.
Correct, and I have specifically asked to identify the contractor and/or design professionals that may be involved with the project, and I've not gotten an answer to that question. It's been some months, so that conceivably could have changed. I will also, again, on September 9th of last year, the statement was made by her attorney that the encroachment agreement needed to be signed and recorded so the owner could begin her process of determining what her renovation timelines will look like. So in September, there was none, and by the end of August, we had what the board has seen. I will also add that when the encroachment agreement was approved last August, it was not just contingent upon receiving a timeline, but of an acceptable timeline. So one could certainly take the position that the timeline that has been forwarded is not acceptable based upon similar timelines that we see in other projects.
Right, and that's definitely a concern for the board, or at least for me. Thank you.
Commissioner Gilligan? Oh, I'm sorry. Commissioner Matthews.
I feel like we're watching a demolition in very slow motion. If you could, for me, just explain to me, if we voted to move forward with demolition, what is the process moving forward?
You've really got 2 routes you can go forward with. One would be what I would say would start as an administrative process through the town's planning and inspection staff. It would be driven by the building inspector and rely on the building inspection statutes insofar as insufficiency of the building. I mean, there's a laundry list of deficiencies. That is the route that the town took previously, and that's the route that resulted in the demolition ordinance in 2020 or 2021. That route took a very, very long time. I mean, we I mean, almost a year. So, and the problem with that route is ultimately the property owner, if demolition is ordered, can appeal to Superior Court. And based on experience to date, my expectation would be such an appeal would be taken, assuming the administrative process resulted in a demolition ordinance. Knowing that, my recommendation would be to file suit in Carteret County Superior Court to have the nuisance abated. Those are the words that the statutes use. And the ultimate order would be to allow the town to demolish the building. It would be signed by, a Superior Court judge, presumably, well, not presumably, but that would be the order. But we would presumably get that order based upon the current status of the building. So my thought would be, again, assuming it's going to be in Superior Court one way or the other, let's go ahead and put it there out of the gate and see if we can achieve some efficiencies. Now, the question mark in any adversarial case like this is what kind of opposition and defense are we going to get? Is it going to be vigorously defended? How many other attorneys will be involved? How long does it take us to get to the end game? But that's just something that we have to go through if we want to move forward with demolition, and we're going to have to do that, whether it's an administrative process coupled with a possible appeal to Superior Court, or whether we file suit initially for the nuisance abatement in Superior Court.
And the nuisance has been established?
We would need to establish it in court. I mean, if we file, well, you have to establish it regardless, whether it's in the administrative process or whether it's in Superior Court. I mean, the town would have to prove its case that it is a nuisance. I think it's intuitively obvious, but like any court case, you have to prove your case. And how you prove it depends on how it's defended. If it's not defended, we can move more summarily, but if it is defended, we have to prove our case more affirmatively with testimony and evidence.
An area to follow up with that, if the town does order the demolition and it's demolished, who owns the property at the end? I know we've gone through this before, but just remind us.
That's a very good question. The underlying ownership would not change, but